I'm Dr. I Can't Walk at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We need to destroy you, Buffalo.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie. Now that we've had a chance to see Infinity War a billion times, everyone started to point out the continuity errors, so I wanted to make a video for my top 20. There's a new round of that Spider-Man PS4 giveaway going on. All you have to do to enter that is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. First big one is actually right at the beginning of the movie. So the first time we see Tony Stark, he's walking with Pepper Potts into the park discussing their wedding. Tony has his hoodie on around his shoulders. The sleeves are tied in a knot covering the miniature arc reactor on his chest. During their talk, Pepper unties the knot and they start to talk about it. Right after that, they cut to a 3/4 shot close up on Tony. The hoodie disappears and is nowhere to be seen for the remainder of the scene. It's tied up around his waist. We only see it again when they go back to the Sanctum with Doctor Strange. When they're in the Sanctum and Tony's deciding whether or not he wants to call Steve Rogers, trying to explain all the beef that they have since Civil War, he whips out the flip phone, and in the screen you can see a reflection of the green screen that they used to shoot all those scenes inside the Sanctum. When they go out to fight the Black Order, and Tony activates his Mark 50 armor by pressing on his arc reactor, he starts to take off his shades with his right hand. They disappear into his gauntlet because they're nanotech. But then in the wide shot right after that, you still see the sunglasses fully formed in his hand close to his face. When the Mind Stone is still in Vision's forehead before Thanos removes it, when you see it sitting there, it's much, much larger physically than when Ultron first created him and put it in his forehead throughout the course of Age of Ultron. So Age of Ultron Mind Stone in Vision's forehead is much smaller than Mind Stone in Vision's forehead during Infinity War. When Thanos uses the Time Stone to turn back time after Scarlet Witch has destroyed the Mind Stone in Vision, Scarlet Witch is screaming at the top of her lungs trying to stop him. In the next shot, you see Thanos hitting Scarlet Witch with his right hand, and you see him holding Vision by his neck with his left. Then in the next shot, you see Thanos reaching for Vision and grabbing his neck. Most of that, I think, is because they started to work on the CG for that early on, and they shot a bunch of different versions of that scene, so the mishmash of footage that they wanted to use later on just didn't quite match up. There's one point where Tony calls Peter a millennial. Peter's about 16 or 17 years old. That firmly makes him Generation Z. Surprisingly, millennials quite a bit older than that now. But after Thanos is victorious, people throughout the universe start disintegrating with their remains blowing away in the dust, turning to ashes. This includes all their clothing, anything else they were wearing. However, random inanimate objects survive. Particularly Nick Fury's communication device, that souped up space pager that he uses to call Captain Marvel. So it's one of those Bucky's arm arguments. Why does Bucky's arm disappear? Because it's a completely inanimate object, but the pager that Nick Fury was holding does not. The close-up on that screen was the whole reason for this post-credit scene to exist though. It was a Captain Marvel scene to let you know that she was coming. When Doctor Strange is still fighting Ebony Maw, he strangles Doctor Strange and he falls down, hits this cop car next to him. In the next scene, when Ebony Maw lifts the ground around Strange, the cop car is nowhere to be found, just completely disappears. This is another one of those CG problems where you have a bunch of different teams all over the place working on the same scene. So one team is working on one version of the scene, while the other team that's actually shooting the actors is doing something a little bit different. When Thor's on the Guardian ship explaining Stormbreaker how it's going to help him kill Thanos, he actually pronounces Nidavellir wrong a couple times. The first 2 times he incorrectly calls it Nidavellir. The third time, he correctly pronounces it Nidavellir. So it's just a small distinction, but you can understand how they tried so many different takes of all these scenes, improvising a lot of moments. Pretty understandable. He says it 50 times. He gets it wrong a couple of those times. The reason why stuff like that makes it into the film is because his physical performance may have been the best of all the takes, even though he was pronouncing it slightly wrong. And the way he said it is so quickly that you really have to pay attention to notice. While they're on Ebony Maw's spaceship, Tony, Peter, and Doctor Strange's cape have this conversation, and for the entire scene, Peter's hair is slicked back. During his conversation with Tony, Peter says, "You can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood." The camera cuts to a speechless Tony, then comes back to Peter, who now has a completely different hairstyle, featuring a bunch of fringe. Then when it cuts away and cuts back to Peter, his hair is a little bit different again for the rest of the time on the ship. More hair problems. Tony Stark's mustache changes a couple times when they're fighting on Titan. When he tells Thanos, "You throw another moon at me, I'm gonna lose it," His mustache is really dark and defined. Then after Thanos reveals that he knows who Tony Stark is, surprising him, you see Tony in the very next shot, his mustache has way more gray, the color's a little bit different, it's thicker, it's unkempt. The eyeball scene. When Rocket gives Thor the eyeball and the two are discussing it, Rocket's standing next to Thor in one shot, but then in the next shot later, he appears in the pilot seat fully seatbelted, even though the scene is meant to be continuous. Another CG goof, when Groot is making the handle for Stormbreaker, it's shown falling down on the ground with the sharp side on the right and the hammer side on the left. When Thor starts to activate it and it starts lifting off the ground crackling with lightning, the sides are reversed. Bit of a story continuity error between movies. Gamora's backstory was very, very different during Infinity War than what we originally learned about her during that very first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So during Guardians, John C. Reilly's character says that Gamora is the last member of her species known to exist. But then during Infinity War, it's this much more complex story about Thanos erasing half of all life, then seeing that spark in Gamora that inspired him to take her with him, knowing that someday he might be able to use her to get the Soul Stone. A lot of people noticed the Infinity Gauntlet continuity error now that we've known that the fake one was in Odin's vault this whole time during Ragnarok. So, if Odin's gauntlet was fake, and Hela was aware of that centuries ago before she was imprisoned by Odin, then why didn't Eitri mention it during the story he told about how Thanos forced him to create something that would allow him to wield the power of all 6 stones at the same time? But it's just one of those moments where you find that, if Eitri was creating Thanos' gauntlet for the first time, like this magical device that no one had ever thought to use before, then how did Odin have one that had existed in his vault for centuries? So Thanos' plan also changed quite a bit between the first Avengers film, what they at least told us what his plan was in Infinity War. During the post-credit scene from that first Avengers film, Thanos' advisor says that the humans cannot be ruled, implying that that's what Thanos' original plan was, just to rule planet Earth from Titan while also collecting the Infinity Stones. But then obviously during Infinity War, all he cares about are the Infinity Stones. The only reason why he thinks to go to Earth is because 2 of them are there. He doesn't care about anything else that's happening on that planet. And during the Age of Ultron post-credit scene, this is a funny one, he says, "Fine, I'll do it myself." Now remember, the continuity is a little bit different between films. Even though within the release schedule of all the MCU movies, this was happening a couple years ago, this moment is happening right before he goes to the Nova Corps to take the Power Stone. So this is also happening a little bit before Thor Ragnarok when Loki's still pretending to be Odin. So he says, "Fine, I'll do it myself," then promptly sends half of the Black Order to go get 2 of the stones for him and bring them back. The only other noticeable continuity error is during the big Wakanda fight scene. There's this close-up of Black Panther when he gives the order to open the shield. There's a clearly visible scene of the spandex suit that he runs around in on set before they tune it up in post-production to make it look like the full-blown vibranium Black Panther costume. But let me know in the comments if you spotted any other continuity errors or story problems in the movie or anything that you saw after watching it a billion more times. But congratulations to the latest giveaway winner from my last big video, Enike Mason. Please email me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. But click here for that new Thor, Loki, Thanos deleted scene, and click here for brand new Avengers 4. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.